"Get out now!" Crispin Hathaway's voice echoed through the pristine showroom of Manchester Premium Motors, one of the city's most exclusive luxury car dealerships. The 26-year-old salesman stood pointing aggressively at a tall, bearded man who had just walked through the glass doors wearing a simple grey tracksuit and flip-flops. The man, who carried himself with quiet dignity despite his casual attire, tried to explain calmly, "I just want to buy a car for my wife. Something nice for our anniversary." But Crispin was having none of it. His eyes swept over the stranger's appearance, the informal clothing, the relaxed demeanor, the complete lack of the expensive accessories that usually adorned their clientele, and his prejudices immediately kicked into overdrive. "You're scaring our real customers," Crispin declared, his voice rising to ensure that everyone in the showroom could hear his display of authority. "Lysander, get this vagrant out of here before he damages something." Lysander Blackthorne, the dealership's security guard, looked uncomfortable as he approached. The stranger wasn't causing any trouble, wasn't being aggressive or demanding, but Crispin was the sales manager's nephew, and crossing him meant risking the job that Lysander desperately needed to support his own family. The handful of wealthy customers browsing the Bentleys and Jaguars stopped their conversations to watch the scene unfold. Several pulled out their phones, recognizing potential entertainment when they saw it. In the age of social media, public confrontations had become viral currency, and this looked particularly promising. Cordelia Fairweather, the 23-year-old receptionist, watched from behind her desk with growing unease. Something about the tall stranger's face seemed familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. There was a quiet strength in his bearing, a calmness that seemed at odds with someone who was supposedly causing trouble. "Sir," Lysander said reluctantly, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." The stranger looked around the showroom, taking in the faces of the customers who were recording his humiliation, the staff members who were either enjoying the spectacle or looking away in embarrassment, and Crispin, who stood with his arms crossed in triumphant satisfaction. "That's all right, lad," the man said quietly, his Mancunian accent carrying no trace of anger despite the treatment he was receiving. "I understand. God bless you all." The grace with which he accepted the humiliation somehow made it worse. As he turned to leave, his flip-flops making soft sounds against the polished marble floor, Cordelia suddenly felt her stomach drop as recognition finally dawned. "Crispin," she whispered urgently, but he was too busy basking in his imagined victory to notice. The tall stranger walked through the glass doors and disappeared into the Manchester afternoon, leaving behind a showroom that buzzed with excited chatter about the entertainment they had just witnessed. It was then that Cordelia's whisper became a horrified gasp that cut through the noise like a knife. "Crispin, you just threw out Tyson Fury." The color drained from Crispin's face so rapidly that several customers later swore they could actually see it happen. His mouth opened and closed several times before any sound emerged. "What?" he croaked. "That was Tyson Fury," Cordelia repeated, her voice shaking. "The heavyweight champion, the man you just called a vagrant and had thrown out of our dealership." Bartholomew Sinclair, the dealership manager, had been in his office reviewing sales figures when the commotion started. He emerged just in time to hear Cordelia's announcement, and the sales report in his hands fluttered to the floor like autumn leaves. "Please tell me you're joking," Bartholomew said weakly, but the expressions on everyone's faces told him everything he needed to know. Around the showroom, customers were frantically checking their phones, uploading videos to social media platforms, and making calls to friends about the extraordinary scene they had just witnessed. Within minutes, the first post began appearing online. "Snobby car dealer throws out Tyson Fury," read one caption. "Watch this idiot salesman humiliate British hero," read another. The videos spread across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook with the inexorable speed of a wildfire. Crispin stood frozen in the middle of the showroom, watching his career implode in real time as the view counts climbed into the hundreds of thousands, then millions. The comment sections were brutal, filled with angry fans defending their hero and calling for boycotts of Manchester Premium Motors. 20 years, Bartholomew muttered, staring at his phone as the notifications poured in. 20 years building this business, and you've destroyed it in 5 minutes. The afternoon that had started as a routine Tuesday at an upscale car dealership had transformed into a public relations catastrophe of epic proportions. Local news websites were already picking up the story, and Crispin could see his face, frozen in an expression of arrogant dismissal, becoming an internet meme in real time. But the real consequences were only just beginning. The first call came from Peregrine Ashworth, one of their wealthiest regular customers, a property developer who typically bought 3 or 4 luxury vehicles per year for his family and business. "Bartholomew," Ashworth's voice was ice-cold through the phone's speaker, which was turned up loud enough for everyone in the showroom to hear. "I've just seen the videos of your staff treating Tyson Fury like some kind of criminal. My daughter Araminta is absolutely disgusted, and frankly, so am I." "Peregrine, please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. We're cancelling our order for the new Bentley, and we won't be doing any further business with your establishment. Discrimination is unacceptable, regardless of how someone is dressed." The line went dead, taking with it £250,000 in immediate sales and potentially millions more in future business. That was just the beginning. The phones rang constantly for the next 2 hours. Customer after customer called to cancel orders, to express their disgust, to demand refunds. The dealership's email inbox overflowed with angry messages from people who had never even been customers, but felt compelled to share their opinions about the treatment of Britain's beloved boxing champion. Reginald Weatherby, a long-time customer who had been in the middle of negotiations for a new Jaguar, walked out midway through the discussion. "I can't be associated with a business that treats people this way," he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Octavia Bramwell, whose family had been buying cars from the dealership for 3 generations, called to inform them that their account was being closed immediately. "My grandfather would be ashamed to have his name associated with this kind of behavior," she said. Crispin watched it all unfold with growing horror. Each cancelled order felt like a physical blow, each angry phone call like another nail in the coffin of his career. The showroom that had been bustling with wealthy customers when he arrived that morning was now almost empty, save for staff members who looked at him with expressions ranging from pity to outright hostility. "You realize what you've done, don't you?" asked Montague Fairfax, the dealership's longest-serving salesman. "Tyson Fury isn't just famous, he's beloved. He represents everything people love about British sports. And you treated him like garbage." Crispin wanted to defend himself, to explain that he was just trying to maintain the dealership's exclusive atmosphere, but the words died in his throat. There was no defense for what he had done, no justification for the prejudice and arrogance he had displayed. The social media metrics continued to climb throughout the afternoon. The hashtag #TysonFuryRespect was trending nationally. Celebrity friends of the boxer were sharing the videos with their own millions of followers. Sports journalists were writing op-eds about class prejudice in modern Britain. By closing time, Manchester Premium Motors had lost over £2 million in cancelled orders, their online reviews had plummeted to an average of 1 star, and their reputation lay in ruins. The dealership that had once been a symbol of luxury and exclusivity was now a byword for prejudice and poor judgment. As the last customer left and the staff began closing up for the day, Bartholomew pulled Crispin aside. "Clean out your desk," he said quietly. "You don't work here anymore." The words hit Crispin like a physical blow. "Uncle Bartholomew, please, don't call me uncle in here," Bartholomew snapped. "You're fired, Crispin. Effective immediately. Your actions today have cost us more money than you'll earn in a lifetime, and I won't have you dragging this business down any further." As Crispin walked to his desk to collect his belongings, the other staff members avoided eye contact. Cordelia, who had always been friendly, suddenly found urgent paperwork to attend to. Lysander shook his head sadly. "You really stepped in it this time, mate." The car park was nearly empty when Crispin finally emerged from the building, carrying a small box of personal items. The July evening was warm and pleasant, but he felt cold inside as he contemplated the wreckage of his career and the humiliation that would follow him wherever he went. He was so lost in his misery that he almost didn't notice the black Range Rover that pulled into the car park and stopped directly in front of him. Almost didn't notice the tall figure that emerged from the driver's seat and began walking purposefully in his direction. When recognition finally dawned, Crispin's heart stopped beating entirely. Tyson Fury was walking straight toward him, and this time there was nowhere to run. Crispin's legs felt like they had turned to jelly as Tyson Fury approached. The former heavyweight champion moved with the fluid grace of a natural athlete, his imposing 6'9" frame casting a long shadow in the evening light. There was something almost predatory about his calm, measured pace, and Crispin found himself frozen like a rabbit caught in headlights. "Evening, lad," Tyson said as he came to a stop just a few feet away. His voice carried the same gentle Mancunian accent that had tried to explain his innocent intentions just hours earlier, but now there was an undertone that suggested this conversation would be very different from their first encounter. "Mr. Fury," Crispin stammered, his voice cracking like a teenager's, I don't know what to say." "Well, that's a change from this afternoon," Tyson replied with a slight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You seem to have plenty to say then. Called me a vagrant, if I remember correctly, Had me thrown out like some kind of criminal. Crispin's box of personal belongings slipped from his nerveless fingers, scattering photographs, a coffee mug, and various office supplies across the tarmac. He made no move to pick them up, too paralyzed by fear and shame to do anything but stare at the man whose dignity he had trampled just hours before. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words barely audible. "I'm so sorry." Tyson studied him for a long moment, taking in the young man's obvious distress, the scattered belongings, the complete collapse of the arrogant confidence that had been on display earlier. "Are you?" he asked quietly. "Are you really sorry, or are you just sorry that you got caught? Sorry that it turned out I was someone famous? Because I've got to tell you, lad, if I'd been just another working-class bloke looking for a car, your apology wouldn't mean much to me." The question hit Crispin like a sledgehammer. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again as he realized he didn't have an answer. The truth was ugly and uncomfortable. If Tyson had been an ordinary person, would he even be here apologizing? Or would he have gone home satisfied that he had maintained the dealership's exclusive standards? "You know what the worst part is?" Tyson continued, beginning to pace slowly around Crispin like a boxer circling his opponent. "It's not that you didn't recognize me. I don't expect everyone to know who I am, and I certainly don't expect special treatment because of my job." He stopped directly in front of Crispin again, forcing the younger man to meet his eyes. "The worst part is how quickly you decided I didn't belong there. You took one look at my clothes, at how I carry myself, and you made a judgment about my worth as a human being. That's not about customer service, mate. That's about something much deeper." Crispin felt tears beginning to well up in his eyes. Everything Tyson was saying was true, and the truth was devastating. "I lost my job," he said weakly, as if that somehow balanced the scales. "Did you?" Tyson's eyebrows rose slightly. "Well, that's something, I suppose. Though I imagine it had more to do with the £2 million in cancelled orders than any genuine remorse about how you treated me." The figure hit Crispin like another physical blow. £2 million. His uncle's business, built over 20 years of careful relationship building and reputation management, had lost £2 million because of 5 minutes of his stupidity. "My uncle, he won't even speak to me," Crispin said, his voice breaking. "The whole family thinks I'm a disgrace. My girlfriend left me when she saw the videos. I'll never work in sales again." "And how does that make you feel?" Tyson asked, his tone suggesting genuine curiosity rather than mockery. "Terrible," Crispin replied immediately. "Absolutely terrible. Ashamed, humiliated, angry at myself." "Good," Tyson said simply. "That's how you should feel. Because that's exactly how you made me feel this afternoon. Except I hadn't done anything to deserve it." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the comparison settling between them. Crispin began to understand that this wasn't just about his actions toward one particular customer. It was about a pattern of behavior, a worldview that judged people based on superficial appearances and treated human dignity as something that had to be earned through wealth or status. "The thing is," Tyson continued, his voice softening slightly, "I've been where you are now. Not exactly the same situation, but I've been at rock bottom. I've been judged, ridiculed, written off. I've made mistakes that cost me everything I thought I cared about." Crispin looked up with surprise. It was hard to imagine this confident, successful man ever being in a position of weakness or desperation. "You know about my struggles with mental health?" Tyson asked. Crispin nodded. Everyone in Britain knew the story of Tyson Fury's battles with depression, his time away from boxing, his remarkable comeback. "There were times when I was so low that I couldn't get out of bed for days," Tyson said. "Times when I thought about ending my own life because the pain was too much to bear. And during those times, the way people treated me, with kindness or with contempt, could literally be the difference between hope and despair." The confession hung in the air between them, creating an unexpected intimacy in the empty car park. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," Tyson continued. "I'm telling you because I learned something important during those dark times. I learned that how we treat other people, especially when they're vulnerable or different from us, says everything about who we are as human beings." Crispin found himself nodding, beginning to understand that this conversation was about more than just his immediate situation. "When you threw me out today," Tyson said, "you didn't just humiliate me. You reinforced a system that tells people their worth is determined by their appearance, their wealth, their social status. You became part of the problem that keeps people like my younger self believing they don't deserve respect or dignity." The words cut deep because they were true. Crispin had grown up in a world of privilege, where his uncle's connections had gotten him jobs, where his family's status had opened doors, where he had never had to prove his worth or fight for basic respect. "I don't know how to fix this," Crispin said quietly. "I don't know how to make it right, Tyson smiled for the first time since approaching him, and this time the expression seemed genuine. "Well, that's interesting," he said, "because I might have some ideas about that." Before Crispin could ask what he meant, the sound of approaching footsteps made them both turn. Bartholomew Sinclair was walking across the car park, his face a mask of professional composure that didn't quite hide his underlying nervousness. "Mr. Fury," Bartholomew said as he approached, "I hope you'll accept my sincere apologies for what happened today. The young man responsible has been terminated, and I want you to know that his behavior in no way reflects the values of this dealership." Tyson looked between Bartholomew and Crispin, his expression thoughtful. "Actually," he said slowly, "I was hoping we could talk about that, all three of us, because I think there might be a way to turn this situation into something positive." Bartholomew looked confused, while Crispin felt a spark of something that might have been hope. "What did you have in mind?" Bartholomew asked cautiously. Tyson's smile widened, and suddenly Crispin realized that the boxing champion hadn't come here just to confront him or to extract an apology. He had come with a plan, something that would challenge everything Crispin thought he knew about forgiveness, redemption, and second chances. "Well," Tyson said, "it's like this. I still need to buy a car for my wife, and I think your nephew here might be exactly the right person to help me with that." The words hung in the evening air like an impossible promise, and Crispin felt his world shift on its axis once again. The silence that followed Tyson's announcement stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Bartholomew's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, while Crispin stared at the heavyweight champion with an expression of complete bewilderment. "I'm sorry," Bartholomew said finally, "but I think I misheard you. Did you just say you want Crispin to help you buy a car?" "That's exactly what I said," Tyson confirmed, his tone perfectly matter-of-fact. "See, the way I look at it, this young man made a mistake today. A big one, granted, but still just a mistake. And I've learned in my life that how we respond to people's mistakes says more about us than the mistakes themselves say about them." Crispin found his voice at last. But I treated you terribly. I humiliated you in front of everyone. I don't deserve—" "That's where you're wrong, lad," Tyson interrupted gently. "This isn't about what you deserve. This is about what kind of person you want to be from this moment forward." Bartholomew was shaking his head in disbelief. "Mr. Fury, while I appreciate the gesture, I have to think about the dealership's reputation after what happened today." "After what happened today," Tyson said, his voice taking on a more authoritative tone. "Your dealership became known for discrimination and prejudice, but it could also become known for something else entirely. For redemption, for second chances, for treating every customer with dignity regardless of how they're dressed." The logic was undeniable, but Bartholomew still looked skeptical. "And you think having Crispin serve you would somehow accomplish that?" "I think it would show the world that your dealership and your nephew have learned something important today," Tyson replied. "But only if he's genuinely learned it. Only if he understands that every person who walks through those doors deserves the same respect he'd show to his wealthiest customer." Tyson turned to face Crispin directly. "The question is, have you learned that lesson? Because if you haven't, if you're just going through the motions because you're desperate to save your job, then this whole exercise is pointless." Crispin felt the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. This wasn't just about getting his job back or salvaging his reputation. This was about fundamentally changing who he was as a person, about confronting the prejudices and assumptions that had led to this moment. I think I have," he said slowly. "Or at least I want to. I want to be better than I was today." "Wanting to be better is a start," Tyson said, "but it's just a start. The real test comes when nobody's watching, when there are no cameras rolling, when you're faced with someone who can't do anything for you but needs your help anyway." The three men stood in the car park as the evening light continued to fade around them. Finally, Bartholomew spoke. "All right," he said reluctantly. "If you're serious about this, Mr. Fury, then I suppose we could try. But Crispin, you understand that this is your absolute last chance? Any hint of the attitude you displayed today, and you're gone permanently." Crispin nodded eagerly. "I understand. I won't let you down." "You won't let him down," Tyson corrected. "You won't let yourself down, because that's who you're really accountable to in the end." They walked back toward the dealership together, an unlikely trio bound by circumstance and the possibility of redemption. As they approached the glass doors, Tyson paused. "Before we go in there," he said, "I want you to understand something, Crispin. This second chance I'm giving you, it's not because I'm a saint or because I'm trying to make myself look good. It's because I've been in dark places in my life, and the people who showed me kindness when I didn't deserve it literally saved my life." He looked directly into Crispin's eyes. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because of who I want to be, and because I believe people can change if they're given the right motivation." Inside the showroom, the few remaining staff members looked up in shock as the three men entered. Cordelia gasped audibly, while Lysander stood up from behind the security desk with an expression of complete confusion. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tyson announced to the small group, "I'm here to buy a car, and this young man is going to help me do it." The next hour was unlike anything anyone at Manchester Premium Motors had ever experienced. Crispin, still shaky from the emotional roller coaster of the day, led Tyson through the showroom with a humility and attentiveness that was completely different from his usual sales approach. "What kind of car were you thinking of for your wife?" Crispin asked, his voice still uncertain but growing more confident as they walked. "Something elegant, but practical," Tyson replied. "She's got 5 children to ferry around, but she also deserves something beautiful. She supported me through everything. The highs, the lows, the times when I wasn't sure I'd ever fight again. She deserves the best." As they examined different vehicles, Crispin found himself genuinely listening to Tyson's needs, rather than trying to push the most expensive option. He asked thoughtful questions about Paris Fury's preferences, about the family's lifestyle, about practical considerations like safety ratings and fuel efficiency. "You know," Tyson said as they looked at a pristine white Range Rover Vogue, "this is exactly the kind of service I was hoping for when I walked in here this afternoon." "I'm sorry I didn't give it to you then," Crispin said quietly. "I was so focused on what I thought a customer should look like that I forgot what a customer actually needed." "And what's that?" "Respect," Crispin replied without hesitation. "Just basic human respect, regardless of anything else." Tyson smiled. "Now you're getting it." As they finalized the details of the purchase, a fully loaded Range Rover Vogue worth $85,000, Crispin felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine satisfaction from helping someone achieve what they wanted rather than what would make him the biggest commission. When the paperwork was complete and the keys were in Tyson's hands, the heavyweight champion turned to address everyone who had gathered to watch this unprecedented transaction. "I want everyone here to remember something," he said. "What happened today, both the mistake and the redemption, that's what real life looks like. People mess up, people learn, people grow. The important thing is that we don't give up on each other." He looked specifically at Crispin. "This young man made a serious error in judgment today, but he's also shown that he's capable of learning from it, of becoming better than he was. That's all any of us can do." As Tyson prepared to leave with his new vehicle, he pulled Crispin aside for a final word. "Remember," he said quietly, "this second chance isn't just for today. It's for every day from now on. Every customer who walks through those doors is going to be your opportunity to prove that people can change, that prejudice can be overcome, that kindness can triumph over cruelty." "I won't forget," Crispin promised. "Thank you for seeing something in me that I didn't even see in myself." Tyson smiled. "That's what second chances are for, lad. They're for helping people become who they're truly capable of being." 6 months later, Manchester Premium Motors had not only recovered from the viral disaster, but had become known as one of the most welcoming, inclusive car dealerships in the country. Crispin, now the dealership's customer service manager, had implemented training programs on dignity and respect for all staff members. The story of his confrontation with Tyson Fury and the redemption that followed had become legendary in sales circles, but more importantly, it had become a personal mission. Every day, he tried to embody the lesson that the heavyweight champion had taught him, that true strength isn't about putting people down, it's about lifting them up. And sometimes late at night when he locked up the dealership, Crispin would pause to look at the framed photograph on his desk, a picture of him and Tyson Fury shaking hands over the keys to that white Range Rover, surrounded by the staff who had witnessed a transformation that none of them would ever forget. It was a reminder that forgiveness isn't about what people deserve, but about who we choose to become when we have the power to change someone's life.